So I've been in the pattern of doing these videos that are dedicated to the Russian economy. And again, I've always said it's not collapsing tomorrow, but something's not healthy about it. And I've been talking primarily about long lines at the gas station and that sort of thing. But it's far more than that. And I'm not doing it like once every 2 weeks or once every week. It's now like every 3 days or 4 days. What I'm going to show you is just the last 3 days of, and not including today, 3 days. So we're going to show you, see, October 6th. Today is Thursday, October 9th. So from the 6th to the 9th, just 3 days worth of the problems, and it goes way beyond the pump. It goes into the stock market. It goes into businesses like having to lay people off or reduce staff. It's going into even potentially, Transnistria might not be sustainable. I'll show you all that in this video. So let's start here. Truck driver driving along the Yellow Highway films 2 traffic jams at Gazprom gas station. He attributes them to the 200-liter diesel fuel limit at Rosneft gas stations. Now, again, there's a fuel limit, but truck drivers, this is what they have to do to sustain. And so if you have a arbitrary 200-liter diesel fuel limit, then that just means they're going to have to stop another place for another however many hours in order to get their gas, in order to get their goods from point A to point B. I understand what they're trying to accomplish, but it's kind of going to backfire. Okay, let's look at this. October 6th. This was also October 6th. October 6th, here, what's going on with industry? Russian industry is moving into short-time work week. Now, that sounds great. I would like to have a 4-day work week myself, but I would also like to be fully paid, and that's not what's happening here. The country's largest factories are switching en masse to 3- and 4-day work weeks with a commensurate cut in pay. The Kirov plant in St. Petersburg sent its employees on vacation in the summer, and starting in August, they switched to 900 workers to a shortened work week. Roslmesh has been working 3 days a week since August. Sales of agricultural machinery in Russia has fallen by 30%. They're just not as productive as they once were. KamAZ has also announced that it will switch departments with underutilized capacity to reduced work schedule. AutoVAZ introduced a 4-day work week. The company sold 200,000 fewer Ladas, almost 25% fewer than the previous year. The Chelyabinsk Electrometallurgical Combine to a 4-day work week starting September 1st. The Yaroslavl motor plant on a reduced schedule. Tinkvin car plant, 7,000 employees, announced a 4-day work week. And now the shortening of the work week is accompanied by a 20% pay cut and the elimination of bonuses and social benefits. Now, if you're not getting benefits and you're only getting 80% of your pay, you have to moonlight somewhere else in order to make ends meet, right? And that's what the problem is here. Legalized reduction in the population's income to conceal the real unemployment in the statistics. The beginning of a comprehensive crisis. Yes, the industrial sector is hurting in Russia. Again, am I saying it's collapsing tomorrow? No, but it's hurting. Now, let's go and look at the gas station, and then we'll look at Transnistria, and then we'll look at the stock market. Let's just look at this. So what are we looking at here? This is 7 October. Russia's gasoline crisis continues to worsen. This is in Yalta, Crimea. Only 5 out of 22 petrol stations have anything to sell. Like, just many are just out. They just don't have anything anymore. Okay, here's also on October 7th, 2-kilometer long lines have formed at gas stations along Moscow-Kazan highway following Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian oil refineries. Fuel station is severely deteriorating by the day. Winter is coming. Yeah, Winter's Coming is also the name of Gary Kasparov's book, which is why he commented on that. That's a great name for Winter is Coming. Okay. So 2 videos taken 3 days apart in Russia's city of Bryansk. First, complaining about gasoline prices. These gasoline prices are way too high, they say, right? Oh, they're complaining about it. Let me play this. The prices of gasoline in the Beetle today, and they're talking about how expensive it is. And then when you take the video a little bit later, sorry, we don't have gas. We have diesel, we don't have gas. And again, this is not everywhere. This is happening in some places. It's not happening in every gas station everywhere across Russia, but it's getting more and more acute. Again, 7 October, this is what I was talking about. Gary Kasparov replying, winter is coming. That has a nice ring to it. Okay, 8 October, we're still looking at gasoline. Serious fuel shortages persist, and Donetsk 92 and 95 octane gasoline are nearly impossible to find, according to local reports. So where is this hitting? It's hitting hardest in the occupied territories in Ukraine, and then the surrounding areas like Krasnodar Krai and Bryansk and Kursk and those kind of regions. Okay, here's another video where a truck driver complains about a 100-liter limit on diesel fuel sales. The route is from Nizhny Novgorod Oblast in Crimea, or to Crimea. In Crimea, the limit is 20 liters. A diesel shortage is a wonderful thing. It is really creating a headache for truck drivers, and that's making it more difficult for them to be able to complete their jobs. And again, I get why they're doing it, but it's just becoming unwieldy. Okay, now, how is this affecting other places? Well, Belarus is quadrupling its gasoline exports to Russia in September as Moscow faced a fuel shortage due to Ukrainian attacks on its energy infrastructure. So Russia is actually importing fuel from other nations. And this is just the beginning of this. It's October 8th, this article came out. Also on October 8th, we saw this. Russia is now unable to refine much of its own oil. It ramps crude exports to raise cash. So exports of crude oil is different than exports of refined products, and crude oil doesn't command as much. Two things can now take Putin down. Both require the spine on part of the Western politicians. Stop shadow tankers. You got to stop them. Don't let them go through. And allow Ukraine to strike Russian oil production, not only refineries. Man, if you hit the oil wells, that is going to throw Russia into a tailspin. Okay, refining is at the lowest since spring 2022. EU pressure and falling oil prices cut Moscow's weekly revenue by 34 million. But again, they're exporting more crude, but the crude doesn't command as much on the market as refined products. This is Zelensky saying, according to our data, the fuel shortage in Russia, specifically gasoline, is already approaching 20%. They've now begun tapping into diesel reserves, which they've been saving for a rainy day. So, yeah, it's getting bad, and it's only going to get worse. Again, that's yesterday, October 8th. A little bit more. How is this affecting international places like Transnistria? The Transnistrian economy, essentially built on free Russian gas and smuggling, both no longer an option at this point, is now at a state of near collapse, one which will likely leave them no choice but to start a process of reintegration with Moldova in the very near future. Okay, that's commentary, but look, they were built on the idea that they were going to have this perpetual energy from Russia and the support, which Russia just can't simply provide. This could be the end for Transnistria, which has been under severe gas restrictions. Industry has stopped and the people are freezing, now faces a stark choice. Join Moldova or freeze to death. And they probably will choose not to join Moldova because the leaders there care about their positions, not about the people, generally speaking, from what I can detect. Okay, also, October 8th, Russia's fuel crisis now descends into a perfect storm as 3 years of restrictions on road maintenance collude with mud season and a lack of gasoline to prevent regions from obtaining any fuel at all. Look at the potholes here. Like, it's pretty crazy what we're seeing here, and it's just, the situation's just going to deteriorate. Now, beyond that, let's look at what's going on. Like how is Putin will run out of money. Let me say this. Putin will not run out of money. He will beg, borrow, or steal to keep going as much as he can until he is stopped one way or another. So this is really interesting. This video here. Putin signs a decree targeting foreign-owned assets still in Russia, accelerating privatization to counter unfriendly Western sanctions in response to EU plan to use frozen Russian funds for Ukraine. So he's going to say, oh, well, you took our frozen Russian assets, we're going to take Western assets. Doesn't matter whose assets they are, that's what they're going to do, and that's how he's going to make up the difference, because it'll be billions of dollars for the companies that decided that they still want to do business within Russia, even though morally they should have gotten out. Okay, And then we saw this today. Russia's deputy foreign minister, Rabikov, claimed that peace process on Ukraine has lost momentum following the Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska, blaming war supporters, especially in Europe. He also warns that the U.S. must understand the serious consequences of supplying Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles. It'll all be over. We're going to be back to square one. That's what he was saying just today. And that had a real significant effect in the market. So Russian stocks fell to a 3-year low after the foreign ministry said ties with the U.S. were destroyed to the core. Moscow exchange dropped over 4%. Heavy losses for Gazprom, Sberbank, VTB, and Rosneft after Deputy Foreign Minister's remarks. So that's where the Russian economy is. It's really bad. It's a train wreck. Now, again, it's not collapsing tomorrow. But I had to do this after just 3 days because it was just that bad. So I'll leave you with this. This is the Nobel Prize winners came out this last week for science and, medicine and all kinds of things. Somebody put this one up to go with it. Nobel, and they all look like this. They have this kind of pattern to it. Nobel Prize in Ecology 2025. It goes to Budanov, Maluk, and Brovdi for reducing fossil fuel production in Russia. All right, my friends, that's all that I have for you. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.